Yes, sir.
Yo, what's good, bro?
What up, bro?
Yo, find a Turbo GT?
We had to make it
This
happen,
thing is
bro.
freaking sexy. What's going on, man?
Yes, sir.
Carbon ceramics?
Yes, sir. The big ones.
Man,
The big
those
ones.
are huge, bro.
I know, bro.
Carbon fiber roof?
Yes, carbon roof, bro.
Bro, how much horsepower does this thing come with?
Bro, Turbo GT is like 650.
650, bro.
It's crazy.
You see the twin pipes in the back, man? This thing is freaking fire, bro. Wait.
Had to make it happen.
Wait a minute. Bro, what the fuck is this?
What do you mean?
Bro, this shit is cat.
Bro, no, that's the tape they leave on, you know, when they deliver it, you know what I'm saying?
I've never seen anything like that in my life, actually.
Well, I mean, you know, Turbo GT, they do it a little bit different, you know what I'm saying? I just haven't taken it off yet. I'm gonna get to it eventually, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
start it up, man. I want to hear this thing. Start it up.
I gotta get the break-in miles, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm not buying it, bro. I'm not buying it.
all right, bro, we'll start it up.
Let's hear it. Start it up.
Bro, I think they just messed up the badging from, like, the factory.
Bro,
you know what I'm saying?
just start the car. Let's hear it.
All right, bro.
Bro, it's a fucking GTS.
I didn't think you would notice.
Bro, I can't with this, man. Yo, listen, man. Last week, it was the BMW M328i with the V6 badging from AutoZone. And I'm out of here, man.
The $130,000 to $150,000 performance SUV segment is getting more crowded than the customer support queue for the Fisker Ocean. You firstly got the gold standard cars, the BMW X5 and X6M, then you have the AMG GLE 63, then you've got the Audi RSQ8, the Range Rover Sport. You've even got the BMW XM, which, yeah, we know how that went, BMW. And then there's this. The Cayenne GTS is what everyone likes to call the sweet spot of the Porsche model lineup. And there's also another pretty slam dunk phrase you could use to describe a car like this. But we love monetization over here, so you're gonna have to use your own imagination for that one. And out of all the cars I mentioned in this price bracket, this is the one I would actually take, despite it having significantly less power than all of its competition, despite it not being the flagship model of its range. And so today's video is gonna be breaking down why. But first things first, a launch control. Okie dokie, time for a launch control. So, 493 horsepower, 486 pound-feet of torque, I believe. It is 56 degrees currently. We are on Yokohama tires, so not the best tires, and that's what we had last time on the Cayenne Turbo E-Hybrid. So, not the best rubber to be using for a launch control like this, but I believe we have everything dialed in. Should be as simple as now hitting brake, hitting throttle, letting go of the brake, seeing what we do. If I were to give a guess, I would say probably somewhere in the low 4s maybe, but we might be able to get it under 3 or under 4 with a couple of runs. So let's see what we do. That went pretty quick. That went pretty quick. Let's see what we did. That actually felt really good. That gripped. That gripped. 0 to 60 in 4.3. Yeah, as I expected. I expected it to be somewhere in the 4s. So let's run that back, see if we can get a better time second go around. I think we might be able to get a sub 4. Just maybe. But these tires might be a limiting factor. But that initial hook was actually very good. I like that. All right, let's give this another go. That might have been a hair quicker, but I also felt slightly more hesitation on the initial takeoff. I don't know what that noise was. It's not the sound tires make. Identical time, 0 to 60 in 4.30, so we got 0.01 seconds quicker. What is the claim time for 0 to 60 on this car? All right, basically 4.1 is the time. So, I wonder how good we can get. All right, last time. Felt some wheel spin that time. yeah, these runs feel super consistent. Yeah, that was actually our worst one yet. 0 to 60 in 4.8. So I think the car probably needs a minute to cool down. I know these 8-speed autos can't exactly do run after run after run like the PDK can. So 4.3, we'll call it at that. That's not too far off from the best time that this car can get, allegedly, although I don't think this has been tested with good tires and on a drag strip yet. So not that impressive of a number compared to a handful of other performance SUVs out there. But I still like this a lot more than a lot of the other options you can buy at this price point. And I'll show you why right now. This $150,000 Porsche has less power than a 10-year-old BMW X5M. Let that sink in. Yet somehow I still prefer this by a long shot to that old X5M, and I'm sure this car would absolutely whoop the X5M in any sort of instrumented testing, at least that version of it. Porsche's thing has never been about the numbers. I mean, for God's sake, the base Carrera still doesn't even have 400 horsepower. But just like BMW, Porsche be capping, they be capping all day long about how much horsepower these cars actually make. At least it feels like it, you know? Does this feel as monstrous and as punchy as the 730 horsepower Cayenne Turbo E Hybrid I reviewed on this channel? No, but I would say it still absolutely rips for sure, and the best word I would use to describe the way this car drives is satisfactory. It has a very satisfactory amount of power, and not satisfactory in the same way the new Toyota Camrys feel satisfactory in how much power they have. This is the smile on the face kind of satisfaction, you know what I'm saying? 493 horsepower is the almost perfect number for an actually usable amount of high horsepower that you can make the most out of on the street. 730 horsepower is great, don't get me wrong, but I mean, you're not gonna always be able to get to use that amount of power in normal everyday applications. With this car though, I really feel like I can make the most of the power on tap in this car. We've also got 486 pound-feet of torque, which definitely makes me miss the instant hybrid assist from the Turbo E Hybrid, but hey, when you need to get going, just drop down a couple of gears and you're good to go. That sound. This is also the lightest car in its class. The X6M, the GLE 63, the Range Rover Sport, all of those cars weigh over 5,300 pounds. This car is just barely over 5,000, and this car with the lightweight package might actually be just a little bit under 5,000 pounds. So while you may not have the same amount of power that those cars have, you've got a pretty similar power to weight ratio. And yes, this is still a big SUV, so it feels big and heavy when taking it down tight back roads and trying to do sports car things in a non-sports car. But it's definitely one of the more athletic SUVs you can buy. I think some would say maybe the most athletic SUV you can buy until we get into like Ferrari Puro Sangue territory. And hey, if you don't feel like 500 horsepower is enough, you could easily take this to a shop for a Stage 2 tune and get an extra 200-ish horsepower, which would essentially give you a Cayenne Turbo GT killer for a lot less. And that's pretty much exactly what I would do if I bought one of these. I'd buy a used one for 140 grand, then spend about 10K on upgrades. So that puts me at about 150, which leaves me about $60,000 under what it would cost to buy a brand new Cayenne Turbo GT, which would still have less power on paper. Ladies and gentlemen, that is boy math. But seriously though, if you got caught on the freeway with something like an X6M or something like that, trying to get active with you, do a roll race, I wouldn't be too worried as long as you're in the right gear. Make sure you're in the right gear. But back on the topic of Turbo GT, Porsche is basically now offering a Turbo GT lookalike package for all the V8 Cayennes. Even the Cayenne S has a version of the lightweight package that has everything that this car does except for the center exit exhaust. And while that definitely, I feel like, somewhat diminishes the exclusivity and prestige of the Turbo GT model, it is definitely great for people who want to buy the cheaper Cayenne and still have it look like a Turbo GT. But imagine if, like, you bought a GT3 Touring for 300 grand, for example, and then Porsche out of nowhere starts offering a lightweight sport package that makes a Carrera S look like a GT3. I'd be pretty salty, to be honest, if that were me. That's just me though. But the benefits of this package include carpeting all of the things: the spoiler, the trim, the diffuser, and most notably the roof, which shaves some weight compared to having a sunroof and lowers your center of gravity. Is this package really a necessary option or provide a real world benefit to 95% of the people buying this car? No, not at all. But is it absolutely sick having a family SUV with a carbon roof? Yes. Yes, it is. It's one of those things that non-car people will never notice at all, but actual car guys like you and me will look at it and be like, yeah, that's hot. Something that I feel like a lot of automakers don't get quite right with their performance SUVs is the transmission tuning, at least in comparison to their sports car counterparts. And I get it, most people buying cars like this don't actually know what these paddle shifters are supposed to do. That's the demographic we're dealing with. But if you are automotively inclined and want to make use of your flappy paddles, sometimes you may be left feeling a bit underwhelmed by a lot of modern performance SUVs. The Cayenne has to be able to do utility vehicle things, because that's what it is at the end of the day. And so that's why this car never got a PDK, because simply a dual clutch isn't as capable as a torque converter auto for towing and things like that. And so the Macan, the Panamera, and then obviously the 911 and Boxer and Cayman, those get the PDK. The Cayenne, unfortunately, has to take one for the team and use a torque converter 8-speed automatic. But I don't think most people, including a lot of automotive enthusiasts, would ever know the difference. And that's because their tuning of this 8-speed auto in the Cayenne is excellent. Shifts are fast, smooth, and eager, which is one of the big things I look for in cars like this. I feel like if you put someone in a Panamera and then hopped into this, you would not be able to tell a difference in transmission performance for like 9 out of 10 driving scenarios. It's actually that good. A lot of performance SUVs just kind of have lazy feeling automatic transmissions, whereas in this, I feel like the car is always giving you those shifts before your brain can even conceive it. This isn't better than the best version of PDK, for example, but I think it's the best in class as far as performance SUV automatics go, if we're not counting the dual clutch in the Ferrari Purosangue, because that is actually amazing. The new Cayennes across the board feature this trick 2-chamber air suspension that makes your ride quality quite nice compared to other sports SUVs that I think somewhat overcommit to the sporty riding experience, which in turn sacrifices daily ability. Not this John. With the double cup air suspension, your ride is relatively smooth given how low to the ground this car actually is. And not too many people know this, but the Cayenne GTS actually takes some suspension components right from the Cayenne Turbo GT, specifically the front axle pivot bearings, which is giving your car much more precise and sharp turn-in with more negative camber. So this car has suspension components from the Turbo GT, which basically means it drives like a Cayenne Turbo GT, which basically means it is a Cayenne Turbo GT if you really want to use some smooth brain logic. But seriously though, the handling in this car is really what separates it from the BMWs, the Mercedes, the Audis, the Range Rovers, whatever. This car is very comfortable to drive, but it also has genuine track-ready driving characteristics, and that's thanks in part to things like the rear axle steering, which I think is a must-have option on this car. It makes the car takes corners so much tighter than you would think it can based on the size of the car. You've also got PDCC, which is Porsche's active anti-roll bars, which really helps tighten things up in the corners. If I were like a psychopath and wanted to buy a Cayenne GTS with track work in mind, I would probably spec the car exactly how I have it right now, which basically means speccing every performance option available on the car. Now, if you left your straitjacket at home and don't plan on taking the Cayenne to the track, the only option I would for sure skip on this car, the carbon ceramic brakes. Now, firstly, these brakes are absolutely huge. They are just disgustingly large. You got the 10-piston calipers with the rotors that are bigger than the size of a lot of wheels on cars I've seen. And for what I'm doing, which is, back road mobbing, they're absolutely great. I've got zero concern about brake fade or being able to stop in time. Absolute peace of mind with this setup. But if you don't plan on doing that, which I'm assuming you are if you're buying a Cayenne, maybe not if you're watching this video, but most Cayenne users are not going to be doing what I'm doing right now. Absolutely try to push it to the limit on a public road, which, we're not on a public road, we're actually on Mexico. Ignore that part. It's definitely good to have, and if money's no object, why not get the carbon ceramics? I think that definitely will increase your residual value. You won't have to worry about brake changes as often as you would for regular steels. And they just look cool. I love the way that they fill out the wheel well. They just look awesome. I think the weakest aspect of the Cayenne compared to its rivals is the interior, and I like the interior. I actually like it a lot, to be honest, but quite honestly, it just doesn't have any pizzazz. It doesn't have any flair. It doesn't have any aura, as the cool kids like to call it. It's just so functional. But if functional is your thing, then you'll like this car a lot in the way it's laid out and designed. If not, you might be more of a Mercedes guy. The interiors on those are perfect for flexing on the Instagram story. This car, not so much. It depends on the crowd. But this car has all of the tech features I personally need. The only thing that Porsche's always been really missing is a good assisted driver. Mercedes and BMW have that unlocked. So if that's something you really need in your family SUV, the Porsche is not going to be the one for you, unfortunately. Something that is great in this car, and I'm realizing Porsche is super consistent with, is their sound systems. We have the Bose upgraded audio system in this car, and man, I'm starting to realize how good Porsche is with their higher end audio systems. Don't get the bass sound systems in the Porsches because those are trash, but the upgraded sound systems in all of their cars are actually pretty good, and this is a shining example of that. Whereas I feel like BMW is kind of just consistently mid, and Mercedes is very much hit or miss. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's just fine. But compared to BMW and Mercedes that are arguably starting to make their cars feel a little bit cheaper on the inside, everything in here feels super solid and premium. All the buttons, dials, and switches, everything in here feels super nice to touch and use. Makes you feel like you're actually using a six-figure vehicle, which is always something we hope for, right? Also, houndstooth inserts. We love houndstooth. And you know what else we love? Liking and subscribing to good videos. So if you think this particular review fits that criteria, you should definitely like and subscribe. And you know what? Let's play a game. If you can correctly guess in the comments the next car I'll be reviewing on this channel with carbon ceramic brakes, I'll buy you a dinner. So guess away. Talk to you guys in the next one.